Hey,
Hey, Kalina, what's up?
nothing much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? That's the question. How's your health?
It's good. My voice is better today. The other day was so hoarse I could barely speak, so that's why I took this
Okay. So what's going on in SoCal?
one. Just getting ready to move to San Francisco in a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited and nervous, but I
Congratulations.
think
What are you going to be doing?
I'm
I
going to
know
be
you're with
interning at
Facebook, but what are you
yeah,
going to be doing there?
I'm going to be interning at Facebook and living in the city, so it'll be a 1 hour commute. Be
Oh,
my
wow.
first time doing something like that.
Okay.
Um, and I'm hoping just to really explore myself and explore something new in San Francisco. And I don't know what it is yet. I'm just hoping I discover something that I can't even wrap my mind around at this point in my life.
Okay.
That's what I'm looking
So is everything complete with Northwestern at this point, with all your studies and everything?
for. Well, that internship will give me the credits for my journalism degree. And then after that, I'll need like 1 or 2 online classes and then I'll be done. So I don't think I'm going to return back to campus after my internship at Facebook.
Okay.
And I don't know where I'll be. I literally cannot tell you yet. Maybe back in LA, maybe somewhere else in the world, or maybe in San Francisco still. We'll see.
Sure. Well, you're in an exciting part of life where there are many doors that are open and there are many opportunities. So it's also a process of just discovery and learning about yourself, learning about the earth and the life and the universe and everything else like that. So it's pretty awesome. So it's nice to be in that position. So I'm happy for you, and I'm glad that you're progressing in a positive direction.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Nervous but excited. I think it's the right move.
Okay. What do your parents think
Yeah.
about you living in San Francisco?
I think they support it. I think they're, for the most part, just really happy that I'm still going to get my college degree, as
Yeah,
like every adult in my life.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think they're just kind of like happy that
Okay,
my life is moving forward, and I'm happy too. So yeah.
cool, cool. All right, so basically, let me give you a little bit of background about this project.
Hmm.
So I do interfaith work and also mixed ethnicity advocacy. And so I find that in doing interfaith work, there tends to be an avoidance of talking about one ethnicity, but particularly mixed ethnicity, and even just the experience of blurring lines and blurring divisions. There's a very predominant culture of I'm part of this community. This is my identity, and I want to engage with other people, but I want to still be solidified in my own kind of box. And so everybody has a box to belong to, and anybody who says, "Hey, I'm part of both boxes," that's like, "Whoa, wait a minute, we don't do that." So that's kind of like the interfaith movement, and then in the mixed ethnicity movement, there's kind of like, oh, all this discovery and exploration of identity and sociology and anthropology, but there's very little talk about religion, and there's very little talk about spirituality. It's very secular, and so religion is there, but it's kind of like the elephant in the room that also gets avoided. So this project is kind of like blending those realms together and building a conversation in that nexus and giving people some insight and perspective about spirituality and the mixed experience, particularly for mixed people who are going through these issues, particularly mixed youth who are going through these issues, and are looking for tools and guidance in how to resolve the issues that come with being mixed and with reconciling being simultaneously involved in different communities and different traditions. So that's basically the idea of this little project. And so inspired by people like yourself and the whole notion of big talk as well, which I must say is very popular at the coffee house that I go to. So every time I go there, people are like, "You got a question for today?" Uh,
Oh
so
yay!
it's like a part of the thing that I'm known for is sharing these big talk questions. So
Well, that makes me happy.
an awesome project. So that's cool. So with that being said, are we ready to go?
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. It's something I've been trying to think about for a while.
Okay, cool. So I have basically 5 questions, and my experience. I mean, and I've done this with a number of friends already, and plan to do with some other friends as well. I find that I'm a very poor interviewer, particularly in a public sense. I should not be that self-deprecating. I'm a modest interviewer, but I've learned that it's beneficial for me to stay with the script. So I have 5 basic questions. I may pose some additional questions, giving your response. Whenever you're interested in continuing on to the next question, that's cool. And we can move accordingly. All right.
Okay.
So here's the first question. It might be the most difficult question, or the most kind of awkward question, particularly in the mixed culture. But that's what we're here for. So the question is, what is the ethnic background and the spiritual background of your father? And what is the ethnic background and spiritual background of your mother?
Yeah, so my father is, he's white. He's Russian, Austrian, Hungarian, Jewish.
Okay.
He was raised Jewish, had a bar mitzvah. I had a bat mitzvah.
Oh, wow.
My mom is Chinese. She grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution.
Okay.
So she didn't have religion growing up. Communism was their religion of China at the time, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, now that she's moved to California, she's kind of adopted some sort of Buddhist philosophies, but I don't think she identifies with any particular religion.
Okay.
And it's funny, my dad with his new wife they've checked out a Unitarian church. So I think it's very California also to experiment with different religions and beliefs and spiritual ideas. So, but yeah, my dad was raised Jewish and my mom was raised in communist China.
Okay, cool. So one of the questions, another taboo question in the mixed ethnicity, culture, and community, but one that many people ask, and one that has a certain amount of legitimacy, is given the backgrounds, the differences between your parents, how do your parents meet, and how does that union come about?
Yeah, I mean, my parents met actually when my mom immigrated from China to the U.S. for graduate school, and my dad moved to Boston for graduate school too. They met at Harvard, and they were both studying biochemistry.
Oh, wow.
So they met through education, which I think is also my family background really values education. So it's interesting that they actually met in that way. And I think it's also kind of a Jewish and Chinese thing to really value education also. So that's how they met.
Yeah, cool. All right. So the next question, we're on to question 2 at this point, is what do your parents teach you as a child growing up, given the traditions of both of your parents and the respective teachings within each of those different cultures and traditions? What do your parents share with you? You mentioned having a strong culture of education that your parents share and obviously impart on you and continue to keep with you as you finish your undergraduate studies. Yeah. So, as a child, what teachings or what lessons do you learn from your parents?
In terms of religion or
spirituality, religion, or anything that stands out in your mind?
Yeah. I was raised Jewish, so I went to Hebrew school.
Okay.
My mom also enrolled me in Chinese school. I found more community in Hebrew school than in Chinese school.
Wow.
And even to this day, most of my best friends are all Jewish. And even when I meet new people, I bond with people who are Jewish, and it's not even over religion. It's just something I think culturally or belief-wise too. And my parents also, I think, from an early age taught me to be very open-minded. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because I had the privilege also to travel a lot. And something I really got from my dad was always wanting to try new things and explore new things. And that's like literally my hobby is trying new things. And appreciating art, appreciating being in nature, but also appreciating culture in the city. So kind of an appreciation for the world at large, and all the different people in it and the things that they do, and also being a part of it. My parents enrolled me in tons of different extracurriculars. Okay. So it was never, there were some points where I almost regretted that, like, oh, I wish I just like had one hobby from the very beginning and was a master of it now. But I also think that's a really big part of who I am too, that I've been exposed to so much and tried many things. And I definitely consider myself like kind of a jack of all trades, and that I feel very fortunate that when I try new things, I normally can become good at them pretty quickly, but I still can't break that barrier to be a master of anything, because I lose focus and I always want to go to the next thing. So instead, like I have all these, like I have a huge toolbox, but I don't have like any crazy thing that stands out. Trying to think if there's anything else that my parents taught me growing up. I mean, definitely in school, pursuing excellence.
Sure.
But also still taking part in the arts and enjoying life, I think was big. That it was all about balance, and yeah, having fun too. So I'm very lucky with my childhood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a fascinating story, and there are a lot of dynamic elements that you're describing in your experience growing up as a child. The fact that you go both to Hebrew school and to Chinese school is very interesting, and it's awesome because it's. I mean, a lot of times in the mixed ethnicity experience, there's kind of like a watered down cultural experience of just blending within the pop culture of that society. And so there's kind of an avoidance of the parents teaching any kind of like traditional culture. I mean, like for myself, I'm coming from Africa and Scandinavia predominantly, but also with elements of native traditions, Judaism as well. And some other traditions, but I abstain. My parents don't raise me, my brother and sister and I, with like a strong intention of culture or spirituality. We kind of like are just believing in the golden rule and a belief in God, but just like you described, getting along with others, discovering others, and kind of just assimilating within the culture of our surroundings. So you're the fact that your parents are intentional in sharing the traditions of your ancestry and your community is awesome, and I appreciate that. For those who are less familiar with what Hebrew school is, can you describe a little bit about your experience with Hebrew school?
Yeah.
Bat mitzvah?
Yeah, I had a bat mitzvah. I went twice a week to Hebrew school starting from when I was 4 years old. It was called Bagels and Blocks. To the time I had my bat mitzvah and actually stopped going right after.
Okay.
I went Tuesday nights and Sundays, and there'd be a time with singing and prayer, and there'd be a time of learning kind of history and culture, and then doing projects. And it's definitely more about the friends. For me, everything was always about the people.
Sure.
I was definitely kind of a rascal in Hebrew school. Like, I think I got sent to the office a couple of times. And this has happened throughout my childhood, like in schooling, where I've been sent to the office for kind of like defying a teacher based on what they said, and like if I didn't believe in it. That happened to me like a couple times in middle school, a couple times in
authority. Challenging authority.
Challenging authority, yeah. But only when I just felt like I didn't believe what they were saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Hebrew school for me, I don't know if I soaked in the religion. I soaked in the friendships through it, community, music. I remember I always loved belting at the top of my lungs during like the singing time. But like growing up, I think for most children, when you're chanting prayers, it doesn't mean that much to you at the time.
Sure.
So yeah, that was kind of my experience with Hebrew school.
Awesome. That's cool. So, so then on the other side, for those who know less about what Chinese school is, can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah. Chinese school was, it was mainly just learning Chinese.
Okay.
And I'd go, and the other Chinese kids from either in my area, and I had one friend who actually She's one of my best friends, and we met in preschool. And she's also half Chinese, half Jewish,
Oh
just
wow.
as a sibling the same age as me. And we did everything together. We did Chinese school together. We did Hebrew school together. We did swimming classes together, piano classes together, ballet together.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was also a big part of my experience, like knowing that I had her too, and someone who was like me who was doing those things. Um, and we would go to Chinese school together. I think we both always felt like a little, I mean, this sounds really bad, but I think whenever I went to Chinese classes or schools, I always felt like a little too cool for it. That's,
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but there were times definitely where I was almost, I think, embarrassed
Yeah.
by that part of my culture. I just like didn't feel like I fully fit in, or I was like too Americanized for just going to like fully Chinese school. Um, and I learned. I mean, I'm still kicking myself today for all the Chinese classes I've taken that I still am not fluent or anything, and I know the basics. And it wasn't until went to China that I really appreciated it, and I loved when I could actually speak some Chinese to people.
Sure.
It's always like that. But I was definitely very concerned with being American also growing up, and just engaging in, like you said, pop culture and American culture and being cool in school and all those different things.
Sure. What was the environment of your school? So you had Hebrew school, you had Chinese school. What about your full time school? What was like the cultural environment of the school there?
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing coming from growing up in the Los Angeles area or Santa Monica, I am very much shaped by how diverse my schooling was, because I went to public school my whole life
Okay.
growing up, and my schools have always been very diverse, and almost all my friends are either mixed race or they come from, their families are immigrants. And I just kind of noticed that. I mean, I didn't notice it growing up until I went to college, and I was like, whoa, it's not actually like that. But
Yeah.
thinking to all my best friends, like one of my best friends, her family's from France, the other one, her family's from Israel and Australia, the other one is Afro-Brazilian and half Israeli. And like all my friends, I have one friend who's from Sweden, one from England, like they're all, even Europe, like I think that just LA is very kind of a much melting pot. And so growing up, culture was like always, it was always a part of my life. It's a part of my friends' lives, but we also just all bonded over just being kids and being American. We all happened to have different cultural backgrounds, and I was able to share in those with my friends, which I loved. Like I went to France to visit my friend. I always would go to my Brazilian friend. Her dad owns a capoeira studio, and I would go there and we'd take Zumba class. My friend who's Israeli, I'd always go to Shabbat at her house. So culture was always like very much part of growing up. But we also just did super American pop culture things too.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you experience as a child growing up. You talk about sometimes being provided with lessons that abstain from coinciding or jiving with your truth or with your experience of truth at that point, and speaking up about it and getting reprimanded or disciplined accordingly. You talk about some of the your attitude, particularly towards the Chinese school of being too cool or whatever, however you want to describe that. That kind of transitions us to the third question. And the third question is, what challenges do you experience as a child or as a youth, along the lines of your spirituality or religious identity, but your ethnic identity, cultural, or how whatever challenges come to mind as a child and a youth?
Yeah, I guess definitely also like, I don't know if it was a challenge, but it was just like part of how my personality like acted towards these different things. Like, yeah, kind of being a little feisty or apathetic to some of the things that adults tried to preach on me,
Okay.
because I didn't believe in them. Yeah, I mean, whenever I was confronted with people who were too traditional, I was just kind of like, screw that, It's like, I think, yeah, Chinese school, not being able to really commit to the entire, I think not being able to commit to the entirety of any experience, I think is a good way to phrase it.
Interesting.
And not being able to commit to the entirety of any community. And this is whether in Hebrew school, like kind of like blowing out the teacher sometimes when they were trying to like preach something that I didn't believe, or Chinese school when I felt like it was just not who I fully was, or was a little too nerdy for me or something. And then even just like extracurriculars, I never could commit to a full one. I was always bouncing to so many different things. And I think that's been something in my life now that's still hard for me at times. But I also think of it as a strength and an asset too now, and have learned how to harness that. But yeah, I think that would be the main challenge growing up.
Oh, that's a very interesting response. And when you say that, it conjures thoughts in my mind about um, you were talking about talking about like abstaining from fully committing or whatever to a community or something like that, and I can strongly identify with that experience. And I think part of that is that at some point when you're involved in a community, there eventually emerges some type of expression of exclusivity towards other communities. And as a premise for genuinely belonging to that one community, or at least ascending within the hierarchy of that community. There becomes that us and them type of scenario. And it doesn't necessarily have to be blatant. It doesn't have to be violent or very derogatory, but it's just, you can pick up on it a little bit. And it seems to be like an intrinsic part of every community of identifying and having solidarity within one community. But when you're an individual that kind of belongs to a number of those of different communities, it's kind of difficult to I'm not, and this is me speaking, I don't want to speak for you, but it's kind of difficult to immerse oneself within that propensity for exclusivity. And so there's a documentary I see a few years ago where a brother and sister who are mixed were being interviewed, and the sister says that being mixed is cool because you get invited to all the parties in the city, and so you get invited to the parties, but you never get invited to the VIP room, and so there's like this experience of here, we are in this community, you're welcome here, but to be in the other room, the secret room or whatever else, it's a matter of you have to show your allegiance or something like that. And so there's like, I love this community, and I belong, and I want to be part of it, but I'm unwilling to make that commitment to exclude everything else to get into that other room. And so she talks about like, so we eventually make our own rooms or something like that. But I think that's part of what, at least for myself, I experienced with the mixed community, but also in the interfaith movement, is finding individuals, finding community, finding dialogue that is inclusive and that is accepting. And there are other challenges with that as well. But when you talk about that aversion towards commitment, that's just something that rings with me. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I think a lot of people can identify with that. So that kind of leads us to the fourth question. The fourth question is, what solutions do you find as an adult? So you mentioned a number of the challenges and a number of the experience. As you age and you're still young, so you may still be discovering, but up to this point, you've grown and you've matured. You're in adulthood. You find certain things that work for you. What are those things? What are some of the solutions that you find as you progress in adulthood?
Yeah, so this may just be a byproduct of living in LA and moving to San Francisco, but I've gone really into yoga.
Sure. Yoga's awesome.
Definitely very multicultural communities there. In general, with different kind of fitness related things too. I think I find my community, well, I mean, it's interesting because I don't think I found a solution yet.
Okay.
I have friends I've always felt like someone who doesn't just have like one friend group. I have friends all over the world, and I feel so blessed for that. I have so many people all over the world I can talk to, but it's like everyone's scattered. And so it's like, I feel like my community is the world.
Yeah.
And so my solution is, when I just go out into the world and just kind of feel, rather than connected to like a community in a small space, just feeling connected to the world at large. And I think that comes through traveling, through the fact that I don't really just like stick to one job or project, that I'm always doing different projects around the world and collecting more experiences and more friendships and communities. And creating art too, I think, is a way to bond with people that's pretty spiritual and transcendent too. I think that's why I like doing projects with people, because creation is definitely a way to kind of, I think, reach a higher level of connection with people, and being in nature with others also. And I don't know, like it's harder to be, like, I don't feel fully any one thing still. I've always said, like, I only feel that I'm fully Kalina. It's really hard for me to put any label on myself other than that. And I just like connecting with all sorts of people over everything. And I think that's Big Talk was kind of my coping mechanism also.
Okay.
With that, just showing that you can connect with people over universal life experiences. And that was my solution. Cool. I don't know if that's an answer.
That's definitely an answer. It's a multifold answer, because you talk about building community globally, and the communication to keep that going. You talk about art as therapy, and kind of like the cathartic processing process. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some strong nuggets of wisdom and insight that people can benefit from. So thank you for sharing that. And also the Big Talk. I think that's a very formidable endeavor that you initiate, and it's obviously resonating with people, because I think there are many people who are looking also for deeper conversation and ways of connecting with people. And so, like I said before, I know myself, just going to a place where it may be you casually see people occasionally and say, hi, how's the weather? And that may be the sports team. And that's about it. And then the next day you recycle that same conversation. So to have this Big Talk, it's kind of like throwing a pebble in the water, and the ripples just keep on going, and it establishes a strengthened connection with people and familiarity that opens up opportunities for new conversations. And so, like all the baristas at the coffee house, we talk, and we don't just talk Big Talk at this point. We have conversations about life and experiences and things like that. And I think there's a certain safety. We know each other comparatively new, or in a comparatively recent manner, but there's a rapport that's built through the Big Talk questions, and through breaking that first barrier, or that first wall of unfamiliarity, and saying, like, what makes you you? I asked that yesterday, and so people at first might be a little bit off guard and have to like put down some walls. But once that's done, then you've got a strong foundation and channel for communication and building a relationship. And then you ask another question and another question, and so there emerges a little bit of an increasing amount of safety. So I'm talking now. You're supposed to be talking. So you definitely find solutions, and you're sharing those solutions. So that is appreciated. And that brings us to the fifth question. And the fifth question is, what message do you have to share with the universe, given your background and your challenges and your solutions, as you continue discovering in life, and continue on your spiritual path? of learning and transcendence. At this point in your life, what message do you have to share with the universe?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Mm,
At least today, at least. It doesn't have to be your ultimate teaching or anything else like that, but just something that's gleaned from your experience and your progression.
what message did I have to share? Mm, hold on, I have to like talk out loud to figure
That's
it out.
cool. That's whatever.
Okay, it has something to do with open-mindedness,
Okay.
but also connection and kindness and compassion with others.
Sure.
And that there is no answer to anything. There's no one answer because everything's gleaned from different people's experiences. And that it's only discovery, I think. There's just like deeper and deeper levels of discovery and understanding. So how do I put that all into a sentence?
It doesn't have to be in a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
You can just talk about the concepts and the words, and people kind of just
Mm-hmm.
receive it accordingly. I know for myself, uh, I go through a fair amount of education, so I have a fair command of the English language. But in doing my spiritual studies, there are a lot of words that aren't English,
Mm.
and there are a lot of concepts that transcend language itself, or at least transcend the English language. And so sometimes I find myself trying to explain a word or a concept in the English language, and eventually, I mean, the universal truth is that the universal language is silence, or exists beyond words.
Mm.
You can throw music in there as well. So sometimes it's unnecessary to specifically articulate what you're
Mm.
experiencing. You can throw in a few words in the mix, and a lot of people sometimes it's just vibing and letting your energy, letting your example, letting your acts speak for itself, and that being the message. Uh,
Mm.
for example, in my dreams, there aren't words. People just communicate through thoughts. Uh,
Mm.
that's it's like a telepathic connection that people have. I find that when trying to convey spiritual experience and transcendent experience, many of our ancestors don't speak English, and so to connect with our ancestors, and to connect with those transcendent experiences, words are just estimations, and so it's just a matter of, you can throw one here, one there, but when you're living it, when you're living that truth and you're living the message, I think that does a much a more increasingly effective job in conveying it to others than anything that you can put into words. So maybe that can be your message to the world, what you're doing in life,
Mm.
and what you're sharing with the universe. And there's appreciation for that. So
Yeah.
I put it there for you. No,
Yeah.
I'm doing too much talking. With that being said, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Mm. I think in the end, it's all about, I'm going back to kind of what's spiritual and what's meaningful in life. I think it's for each individual to find their own flow, the thing that makes you not think and just makes you feel that you're being truly yourself, I think is all you can really do. There's no answer for, like the solution to what's meaningful. It's really just being fully yourself and then figuring out how to be fully you and connect with others while being you, and kind of merging worlds with different people. And yeah, it's like balancing being open but being yourself. I
Okay.
don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
everything's about energy, the energy you devote to others and to yourself and to what you want to be doing. And I think that it's important to always check up on that too whenever it doesn't feel right, to really just stop, because life is way too short to be devoting your energy, which is your precious resource, time and energy, to anything that's not in line with who you are and what you believe and who you care about and truly want to be with too. And I don't know, I just read like this passage where someone was talking about I think Into the Wild,
Okay.
where this guy goes off and he goes off into the wild to kind of fend for himself, and he's really into believing in self-reliance and being independent. And I went through a phase like that too, where it's like, oh, the only person I can rely on is myself, and yada yada. And he actually ended up passing away in the wilderness. And I think the last thing he wrote in his journal was like something along the lines of, happiness is only meaningful when shared, which I think kind of covers everything. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Kalina.
Thank you.